Hi, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to our second edition of Breaking News for this Thursday, the 29th day of May, 2025. And it's taken me a little longer to get back to you to do a second edition of Breaking News because the stories and the headlines keep going back and forth, mainly with respect to the ceasefire hostage deal between Israel and Hamas. The Iran-US deal is also in the news, so I'm going to give you the latest as it stands right now. First of all, the White House has said Israel actually signed off on the latest Gaza ceasefire proposal before it was sent to Hamas. This is from the Times of Israel. And this is very shocking to me that Israel is actually going for this deal we talked about this morning. All right, second headline from YNET News. Israel says Hamas has yet to approve ceasefire proposal after reports of agreement. There was a Saudi story that said there was agreement between both parties. President Trump was going to make a statement explaining what the situation was, what the agreement consisted of, but that's in limbo right now on hold as we're doing this right now. So we'll figure out where this ends up. Also, U.S. Iran nuclear deal could be reached as soon as the next round of talks, sources tell CNN. In other words, the deal is that close, supposedly, we're told from CNN, to being signed between the U.S. and Iran. And then YNET has it correctly. There can be no good nuclear deal with Iran. This is from Israeli officials, and that is so true. So let's try and make some sense out of all this if we can. All right, the White House said Israel did sign off on the latest Gaza ceasefire proposal before it was sent to Hamas. This comes from the Time of Israel. This is from White House spokesperson Karoline Leavitt. U.S. President Donald Trump and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff submitted the proposal to Hamas after Israel signed off on it, she said. Leavitt appears to be referring to the meeting that Witkoff had on Tuesday with visiting Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer when the two went over the latest U.S. proposal. She said, I can also confirm that those discussions are continuing, and we hope that a ceasefire in Gaza will take place so we can return all the hostages home, Leavitt said at a briefing. Asked if Hamas had accepted the proposal, she responds, not to my knowledge. Now, that was what we heard today. This is rather shocking given what's been reported of what the deal consisted of. The people making comments on this article and similar ones are actually shocked that Israel has given in. Hamas is teetering on the brink of, this falling apart. Yet it seems Israel is going to throw them a lifeline. Now, two elements that we reported on earlier with respect to the proposal are now in dispute. Israel has rejected the idea that they must retreat to where they were before they began this latest Gideon's Chariots campaign. They said that's not part of the deal. We don't have to go back to where we were. In addition, Israeli sources also report there is nothing that compels Israel to continue to allow the UN to be back in charge of the food distribution. That was another point that was raised today, as it was supposedly told what this agreement consisted of. Now, bottom line is we'll just have to wait and see exactly what this agreement consists of because you've got dueling stories going back and forth. All right, headline number two. Israel says Hamas yet to approve ceasefire proposal after reports of agreement. This again from YNET. Saudi outlet says Israel-Hamas ceasefire deal is reached, includes a 60-day truce with hostages released, prisoner released, and the U.S. Qatar Egypt guarantees. White House talks ongoing. Israeli officials said late on Thursday that contrary to reports in the Saudi Arabian media, Hamas has not yet accepted the terms proposed in the framework for a ceasefire and hostage release deal in Gaza after Israel said it accepts the terms. The Saudi outlet Al Arabiya reported earlier that Israel and Hamas have agreed on the 60-day ceasefire, with U.S. President Donald Trump expected to announce the agreement shortly. The report came 2 hours after Prime Minister Netanyahu announced that Israel accepted the updated framework offered by U.S. Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff. According to the report, Witkoff was briefed on the deal, though there has been no Israeli confirmation on the matter. Al Arabiya cited unnamed sources saying the parties agreed to a 60-day ceasefire. The U.S. envoy has been informed. Trump is expected to announce the deal within hours. Again, Israeli officials commented shortly after that report was received that they have no knowledge yet of Hamas's agreement on the terms of the thing that Witkoff presented, and that's where it stands right now. As far as we know, that can change in an instant. But as we're doing it right now, this is where we're at. Now, during a meeting earlier today with the Hash's family, Netanyahu said Israel accepts the proposal. Hamas, however, again issued a statement saying its leadership had received the updated Witkoff proposal from mediators and is studying it responsibly while safeguarding the interests of our people, ensuring humanitarian aid, and striving for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. And so this is where we're at. There'd be within the first week, 10 living hostages would be released. The bodies of 18 others in two phases would be released. Of the 58 hostages still in Gaza, Israelis believe 20 are alive and up to 38 are deceased. During the ceasefire, negotiations would take place to end the war. If an agreement is reached on the principles for ending the war, all remaining hostages, both living and deceased, would be released. And so, in other words, Hamas here, if this goes through, here's the bottom line. Hamas would have 60 days to regroup, continue building tunnels, recruit new terrorists, and be able to feed their warriors. Again, to many, this does not make any sense for Israel to allow this to happen when Hamas is literally on the ropes. Furthermore, only 10 of the 20 living hostages would be released. It is widely believed that the remaining 10, at least they have to wait 60 days for a possible release even after this, the remaining 10 would be in mortal danger because Hamas is certainly not going to ever let them go, seeing that they have no other bargaining chip. In other words, people are very fearful for the life of these last 10 if it comes down to this. So you've got that. And also, too, you think about this. Can you imagine being the hostages, part of the family of the hostages, and there's 20 to be released? Is your son, your husband going to be one of the 10, or is he going to be one of the 10 left behind? Who makes the call on this? Who makes the decision? That's the dilemma they're in. All right, so let's move on now from what's going on with this situation to another huge story, and that is the U.S.-Iran nuclear deal could be reached as soon as the next round of talks, sources tell CNN. The fifth round of talks between the U.S. and Iran concluded last Friday in Rome, with Iranian and Omani officials issuing positive statements. We've talked about that. Now, here's the latest thing, though. An Iranian nuclear deal could be reached during the next round of talks between the United States and Iran. Sources told this to CNN yesterday, Wednesday. The mediators are closing in on a broad agreement that could be achieved next time the countries meet, likely in a Middle Eastern country, the report said. U.S. President Donald Trump also told Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu not to disrupt talks, it said. Netanyahu has threatened to strike Iranian nuclear facilities as the U.S. expressed diplomatic concern that the airstrikes would disrupt nuclear talks, preferring to exhaust diplomatic avenues. The New York Times reported Wednesday this story. In response to the report, the Prime Minister's office said this was fake news. And we know fake news comes out of the New York Times all the time. Trump told reporters in the Oval Office, I told him, that is Netanyahu, it would be inappropriate to do this right now, that is to attack Iran, because we're very close to a solution now. This could change at any moment. The Omani foreign minister, however, said the fifth round had wrapped up with, get this, but not conclusive progress, and, quote, we hope to clarify the remaining issues in the coming days to allow us to proceed towards the common goal of reaching a sustainable and honorable agreement. All right, that was after the last meeting. Our friend Larry Goldstein, of course, has some wise observations on the matter. Again, always love how Larry puts it. He said, all right, what exactly is the deal? Did the Ayatollah submit, or did Trump? If Iran is left with centrifuges and uranium, then Trump lost, and this will not be seen as a personal triumph, no matter how much he trumpets his victory. That's from Larry Goldstein, our favorite commentator here. He's absolutely right. So what's going to happen? Again, we just don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Now, this next headline, though, is the last one we're doing on this edition of Breaking News Says It All. There can be no good nuclear deal with Iran, officials warn. This is YNET. Israelis are concerned that Trump will not insist on dismantling Iran's nuclear program, contrary to U.S. assessments. Austrian intelligence says Iran is well advanced, possessing a growing arsenal of ballistic missiles able to carry nuclear warheads. We've been, reporting on that also here. This is confirming what we've said. We have sources like we've said. Our friend Notter, who works with special forces, has said they got 30 to 50 known, missiles that can go over 3,000 kilometers. Anyway, Israeli officials said on Thursday that there cannot be a good nuclear deal reached between the United States and Iran because the Iranian refusal to dismantle its nuclear program. The officials said Iran's nuclear ambitions are part of the nation's ethos In their view, only if U.S. President Donald Trump insists on the terms he has expressed publicly, there may be a chance for a good deal. Israel has informed the United States of its red lines and the terms that would be considered acceptable for a good deal to be reached. The official said that Trump was heading towards a deal, that after Iran was weakened by the IDF's successes in the war against Hezbollah, the path for a deal became possible. Israel was preparing for every scenario, the official said, and they'll not allow Iran to possess nuclear weapons. He said, adding to all the top security officials believe an attack on Iran's nuclear sites is possible and necessary. This is from the Israel top security officials. It's not only possible, but it's absolutely necessary. Sooner or later, this must be done because Iran will not willingly give it up. Fox News reported on Wednesday that an intelligence report in Austria claimed Iran was actively continuing with its nuclear weapons program, contrary to American assessments. And Khomeini, of course, has not authorized the nuclear weapons program supposedly that he suspended in 2003. But here comes the but. But in order to assert and enforce its regional political power ambitions, the Islamic Republic of Iran is striving for a comprehensive rearmament with nuclear weapons to make the regime immune to attack and expand and consolidate its dominance in the Middle East beyond. Austria's domestic intelligence service said in its report. In other words, this is precisely what they're doing. They're building their nuclear power. Their ambitions are that for a nuclear weapon to be the cheese, as it were, in the Middle East. The Iran nuclear weapons development program is well advanced, and Iran possesses a growing arsenal of ballistic missiles capable of delivering nuclear warheads over long distances. Again, something we've said 30 to 50 at least. They have these missiles that could get all the way to Israel, all the way to Europe too. Not to the United States. They don't have the ICBMs. They could get 3,000 kilometers. All right. And so we know that for a fact. These weapons could carry a nuclear payload. As the article stresses, there is no good deal that the U.S. can make with Iran. None. No good deal whatsoever. Will they make a deal? Well, if they do, it's not going to be a good one. That we do know. We will keep you posted. As always, there's never a dull moment around here. I'm Don Stewart. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, as always, may the Lord richly, richly bless.